I'm now going to show you what we can do with these spruce. This reminds me very much of the Izo spruce that I used to grow. I had a proper Izo spruce forest group that came from Japan, which unfortunately got stolen about 20 years ago. I had it back from the 1970s, and it got stolen, I think, in the 1990s, about 30 years ago. So this reminds me of Izo spruce. So what can we do with young trees like this? Now, trees lend themselves to certain possibilities. If we look at each tree in turn, if you went to a nursery and found something like this is also possible for making into a forest. So this is possible as a forest. But to bend it would be quite difficult. So we wouldn't try and make an S-shaped tree out of this. So that is a possible subject for a forest. But since I'm looking at these ones, so why don't we try and show you what is possible with these trees. Now that's a short one. I'm going to show you what I can do with this one. I'm going to make this into an individual tree. But I will pick out about 7 of these trees and make a forest with these. So let me find some which have similar color. About 7 trees or 9 trees. Four. Look at the lovely mycelium on these trees. Huh? That's 4 into 6. Another 3. Just at random. And 1 for luck in case I need to mix them up. So here we are. And we will go into the greenhouse and I'll show you what we do. Okay? So what can we do with a thing like that? That's like an Izo spruce of sorts. I think it's a Picea. I'm not sure the exact botanical name, but I can turn it into a reasonable looking tree or a reasonable looking bonsai. So first thing I do is to take it out of the pot. These trees, as I told you, they must be at least 6 years old from cutting, maybe more. Maybe more. And like the pines, they do have a bit of mycelium too. I always thought that mycelium grew mainly with pines, but some of these conifers do have mycelium. And moss grows naturally when they keep getting watered in the pot, so you don't have to grow moss from seed, which some people ask me, do you have to grow moss from seed? I said, no, just scrape it from the floor. Okay, so let's make this into an S shape, the proverbial informal upright tree. I'm using, this is 3.5 mil wire, and I'm going to take the wire right to the top as well. This is what we call the ABC of bonsai, or learning to play the scales in piano. Once you master this, you will be able to do anything. So we put the wire on and we give it a twist. We call it stirring the pot. You've got to know your tree. If you feel it bending or cracking, ease off and don't do much more. Okay, I've been able to bend that. Now let me place it in a little pot to stand it up at a different angle. Although it came out of the pot like that, I think for the purposes of my bonsai, I'm going to plant it at that angle. At that angle. So, from that to that, and that's it. One piece of wire has almost changed the shape quite considerably. Now let's change the shape even more. Okay. So we are wiring 2 branches together, the 2-branch principle. All this reiterating the general principles doesn't do any harm. Okay, so I'm trying to create an S shape. I can use this as the front as well. I can use this as the front. Give a little zigzag to the branch. And then 2 pieces of wire, and I've created that shape already. How easy is that? So some more. So I keep looking for pairs of branches. Now this is a 3-branch situation, and the 3-branch situation always foxes people. The expression foxes mean that it confuses people. So why does it confuse people? Because they say, oh, I've got 3 branches, how can I apply the 2-branch principle? Yes, you can. You wire over an existing branch that you wired. So that is the 2. Now this loose one, I will link to a branch which has already been wired, which would be, say, let's go to this one. So I'm putting a double on this. That's just to provide an anchor, and then go on to this one. The foliage is so fine, it's a lovely spruce. So I'm just making the branches hang downwards. How simple is that? And I'll give a little more shape to the top. So I'm going to bend it a little more at the top. And to bring that down, I'm going to do that. So I will link it to this branch as the anchor point, and then take it up to the top. So that gives you a nice termination. So I'm going to plant it in one of these pots, and there you go. How simple is that? I've got here 2 Piceas. I think they are Nordman spruce, but it's too green to be Nordman. Nordman spruce has got a bluish tinge to it. But the spruces is such a large family that there's so many different variations of it. So let's show you what you can do with this. I like to show these because many beginners in bonsai, they go to garden centers because they don't want to spend too much money, and rightly so. There's no need to spend a lot of money. They come across material like this, they haven't a clue as to where to start. So I hope these videos will help you along your bonsai journey and make a lot of progress. Now, although they are identical trees from the same batch, they have a completely different habit. This is tall and straight. This one, at some point, the leader died off. Can you see the top here? The leader died, and because the leader died, it could have been chopped off for all you know. And because this leader was chopped off, the side branches took over. So what do we do with this? So you can make it into broom style, but that wouldn't be much interest. Let's create the traditional S shape. The S shape in bonsai is almost a universal shape. If you create any little tree in that S configuration, it will look very credible as a bonsai. So, and the way that the roots are growing, it seems that this tree has been growing in this pot for quite a while, and I can barely get it out of the pot. So when you get a situation like this, you've got to cut these roots. I hate people who cut the pots up and destroy the pot. I don't like pots being cut because you can't use it again. If you cut the pot, you'll have to throw it away. And especially plastic wastes, I don't like to see plastic waste. So I'm going to save this pot. We use these pots for potting up our seedlings. We grow a lot of seedlings on the nursery. So there you go. And It's quite pot bound, so it's probably been growing here for quite a while. Okay, so what do I do with this? I think I can use these two branches like that. Always remember that the basic design of most bonsai is triangular. As long as you create something with an S shape and triangular configuration, the tree will look convincing as a bonsai. So again, because these are just nothing trees, I won't waste too much money even on new wire. You must be asking why I'm parsimonious. You know what the word means? Parsimonious means you're very stingy. And rightly so, because as I said to you, I'm a great believer in recycling. Not only do I hate waste, I really believe that the planet needs to be saved by being a bit careful in how you use materials. So I recycle all my wire. People may laugh at me, but so what? Okay, so I'm going to wire these two lower branches. I know that almost every tree can be different, but the more examples I give of situations which look almost impossible, the more encouragement I hope you will get for tackling things which seem impossible. I always believe that so long as you wire every branch and then play around with the wired branches to see what shape emerges, you can't go far wrong. Now my approach to bonsai is quite different from other people's. I just noticed something. If you come close, there's a graft mark here. So this was grafted. This is some unusual variety of Picea which has been grafted onto that. Even this plant, you can see the graft mark here. So this is a graft. So grafting is done when you want a particular species to grow, which you would have difficulty producing from seed. So let me terminate the wire here. Okay, I've put fairly thick wire. This seems to be like 3.5 mil wire. Always remember, if you don't use the right grade of wire, it won't do the job. It won't bend the trunk or the branch that you want it to bend. And again, I would repeat, don't think you can get away with just having 1 or 2 grades of wire. You should really have several grades of wire, because you never know when you need a thicker one or a thinner one. If you use the wrong grade of wire, you can damage the tree. Okay, I'm just trying to explore the possibilities. I'll do something to the top. I think you know by now, I don't like to preconceive the design of the tree. Some people draw a picture of the bonsai they want to create, and they draw it in such detail that they want to follow it slavishly to achieve the end result. I'm not saying that that is not a good method to use, but I usually find it very restricting. If you just let the design emerge as you go along, that is more satisfying. So I know roughly what I want to achieve, but I don't draw it to the extent that every detail I have to slavishly follow and achieve. So you see I've now wired all the 3 branches that were there. So it's like a triangle there. So now that it's wired, I can proceed by creating that proverbial triangular shape. Okay, so I don't want too many branches dangling down. You must be asking, how do I know what branches to cut? Well, I think a lot of these things, they speak for themselves. And usually if the tree comes out of the pot at an angle, it's easier to create a sinuous shape than if you simply stood it upright like that. If I put it at a slant, you see straight away it becomes more artistic. Okay, I've given a little twist there to the top. I didn't attempt to bend this because it is much too stiff. Why go against the grain, as they say? Let's go with the flow. And at this stage, you know by now, I always use these little Japanese training pots because I use them as a prop. If I prop it up like this gives me a better idea as to the angle I'm going to eventually make the bonsai grow out of the bonsai pot. And now I can proceed to refine the branches to give more detail. I'm not showing off if I say that I could have done this in 3 minutes. I'm taking the time to explain what I'm doing so that you can understand my thought process. So I'm going to keep this slanting shape and create a triangular overall shape for the bonsai. And now I'm trying to think how I can arrange the pads to make them credible. So this is my stock of used wire. This type of picea is not the most appetizing species to use for bonsai because the branches and twigs are very stiff. But if you take the trouble to tip it, they do bud back and you get some fine foliage growing. So you see I'm wiring these flat so that the pads will come out in the traditional way, like the palm of your hand, flat like that. So that is the pad. Now that bit sticking out from the bottom I can get rid of. So that is a nice classic pad. That one maybe tied it up a little bit. If I can get away with it, I won't wire that. Now these branches can be wired to form the future structure of the tree. So I'll use thinner wire. Mind you, this is all my scrap wire. Like all conifers, these needles will shed in later years. Usually the needles stay on for 2 or 3 years, and then the new leaders will come and you will get bud back. Bud back meaning you'll get new shoots. And I noticed that this tree is going naturally in that direction, so that will be a nice culmination of the S shape going there. You can pull some of these needles off to make the trunk more visible. You can pull it off because they will fall off eventually, so we're just helping it along a bit earlier. And that opposing branch there I will take off because I just want it stepped going up like that. So without taking it too far, you can see already I have a very credible looking bonsai tree with that shape, planted at that angle, not like that. So I will not show you how I pot it up because it's a very simple thing to do. Now that pot is a bit too small. We always use our training pots, these plastic training pots. So I'll plant it at something like that. So that would be okay. So I'll show you this when it's planted up. Now this Picea, as I showed you earlier on, is the same species, but it's bolt upright. And you don't have to make everything into an S shape. It can be bent if you use thick wire. Look at it. It's almost as thick as my small finger. If you take the trouble to use thick wire, I can get a bend in it. But why do I want to do that? I don't need to make everything in an S shape. So let's make this a straight tree, because a lot of conifers in nature grow tall and straight. So simply by wiring the branches downwards, I will get a very credible looking tree. Now, I'm going to use these lower branches, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Although this is a short branch, it doesn't follow that all the branches have to be broad at the base, tapering to the top. You can have some short branches, and you can have some tall branches further up the tree. But because these branches were short and small to begin with, I will keep them. They will grow longer in time. Again, we are wiring the branches downwards because in their true habit, when they grow mature, the weight of the branches makes the branches hang down. So let's try and create that old image of an old tree with the branches hanging down. So although this is a relatively young tree, when I say young, it's about 6 years old, I would say, the branches are very stiff. Unlike Scots pines and junipers, they are a bit hard to keep wired downwards. So I've had to use quite thick wire. This is 2.5 mil wire. And this branch sticking up here, I'll take it out because it's coming straight out at me. So again, I'm just wiring ad lib and see what happens. And then the leader I'd want to take up to the top. The leader usually confuses people. So this is the end result of the same type of tree but completely different styles. This is a formal upright with long sweeping branches coming down with that triangular shape. And this is also a triangular shape, but this is more the informal upright because it had 3 branches like a fan. So we've made it like this. So the same material, 2 completely different styles. So how easy is that? We sell these young plants on our nursery and they're very popular with beginners, but I'm not sure what beginners make out of it. So if anyone has bought these, you have some ideas as to what to do then into this style, formal upright or the S style. And we also use these for making forests because they make beautiful forests as upright trees. So there you go.